Welcome to a clickbait video. Well, technically, it's not really clickbait if I deliver what the title promises, right? But technically, it's still clickbait because I baited you into clicking on this video. Anyways, it's nothing bad about the camera. It's just a personal preference slash a very unpopular opinion. I really dislike the new placement of the record button on the A7R III. Now I know, there are a lot of reviews and a lot of filmmakers out there complaining about the A7R II and the S2, saying, "Oh Sony, why is the record button on the side of the camera? It's so weird, it's so awkward, put it near the eyepiece where it's more natural." I personally never had an issue with the record button being on the side of the camera. I like it being far away from all the other buttons that I often press. When I want to start or stop recording, it is intentional. I don't have to worry about accidentally touching the other buttons while I'm doing that. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm alone in this. But when I was using the A7R III like this over the weekend for a wedding I was shooting, I'm ready to capture this beautiful moment, the bride's walking down the aisle, or, the couple is doing something cute and I'm about to record and bam, I get slapped with this message. It's because I hit the AF on button instead of the record button. These two buttons here are too damn close to each other. It's not the biggest deal, it's just a minor inconvenience that I personally have to get used to. But moving forward, I think I'm going to avoid using the actual movie record button and program the movie record button on the AEL button instead. This is far away from the other buttons. To me, it's close to where the O button is at. And I'm also going to have the movie record enabled on the shutter as well. So for those of you who've been asking Sony to make the shutter button to be able to trigger the movie recording, you'll be happy to know that it is now possible. And that's what I love about the A7R III thus far. The amount of customization that you can do has vastly expanded. I was gonna say vastly improved, vastly expanded. Anyways, let's move on to the few video aspects that I really enjoyed on the Sony A7R III. Now, this is not a definitive review on the A7R III. This is just more of me sharing my learning experience and gathering material for my full user experience review that is coming in the near future. So think of these types of videos as micro update reports on my experience with the A7R III. And since I already talked about the record button, for the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about the autofocus improvement, the battery life improvement, as well as Super 35 mode. First off, the biggest improvement that I see in the autofocus department is the face detection. The A7R III does a much better job detecting a face compared to the A7R II, and dare I say, even the A6500? For example, when I was shooting the bride walking down the aisle, the face detect picked up her face right at the start of the aisle. You can just imagine how tiny that little box was on their faces at the start of the aisle. But with the A7R II, the subject would have to get halfway down the aisle, maybe like a medium-ish shot before it even detects a face. It is insane how the A7R III picks up a face so far away and so tiny on the screen. Another quick thing about the face detection is that it works on the side of the person's face. So if they turn 45 degrees away from you, the box will still show up on their side of the face, letting you know, "Hey bro, I still got focus on their face." And you're like, "Thanks bro." I don't know what that was about. Alright, moving on, I know a lot of people are curious about the battery life, so let me preface this by saying that with the A7R III, I was shooting mostly 4K, 24 frames per second, 100 meg with the Rode Video Mic Pro Plus attached to it almost throughout the entire day. The Video Mic Pro Plus is known to drain the camera's battery, even though the camera is off, because of the auto on feature. So with that in mind, I have a total of 4 batteries, but I've only used 3 and never had to recharge a single one. Okay, that's a lie. I was recharging at least 1 battery, but I never had to use it. So my first battery lasted the entire prep session and about 80% of the wedding party photo shoot. And then I swapped out to the second battery, which pretty much powered the camera for the rest of that photo shoot, the hour ceremony, the grand entrance of the reception, and then I think I still had about 38% battery left, so I still swapped it out anyways for a third battery for the speeches, and that pretty much lasted me the entire night. At the end of it all, I think I still had about 70% left on that third battery. With the A7R II, I would have to at least change out the battery twice for each wedding event, and my partner Eric, who was shooting with the A7S2 and the A6500, was consistently asking me to reload the batteries on his cameras. But with the A7R III, I hardly ever had to worry about it. I hardly have to check. So when DP Review gave these Sony batteries Gear of the Year award, I thought it was silly. But after using it over the weekend, it is well justified. Okay, so the last part of the video that I'm going to talk about is Super 35 mode. Now, I use Super 35 mode a little differently. I personally use it to get a little bit of extra reach out of my lenses. I don't really look at the quality difference between full frame and crop frame. However, if you're shooting 4K in Super 35 mode, you're technically getting a little bit better video quality on it because it's shooting in 5K but downsamples to 4K. However, the A7R II was already capable of this, and I've never noticed any huge quality difference between full frame and crop frame. However, when we're shooting footage with the A6500, we notice a huge quality difference because it's technically shooting in 6K but downsamples to 4K. So generally, the footage that we get on the A6500 is better than the A7R II and the S2. But anyways, back to my main point. I like now the Super 35 mode is something that you can have in your function menu as well as your custom buttons instead of having to go through your entire menu just to change it. This significantly speeds up my workflow because I often switch between full frame and crop frame during a video shoot. And actually what I discover is it's better to have the option on one of your custom buttons instead of having it on your function menu, because when I was toggling between auto and manual, on auto it would be Super 35 mode and manual would be full frame mode. But then later in the day when I try to toggle them back and forth again, it would stay locked up in Super 35 mode regardless if I was on auto or manual. So it was kind of frustrating. I think instead of auto and manual, it should just been on or off to avoid the confusion. But with it being on one of the custom buttons, it's pretty much a guaranteed switch between the two modes. Man, after shooting both photos and videos over the weekend, I can confidently say the A7R III is my new favorite hybrid camera. Now, I'm not just saying this because this is a brand new camera. Really, the overall experience is just so much better. And this is coming from someone who's been using the A7R II day in and day out for the past 2 years. A lot of the upgrades on the A7R III are well justified, but the A7R II I can still recommend to any casual users out there and even pros as a B or a C camera. Alright, so I'm going to keep on shooting with the A7R III for the rest of the month and keep on updating you guys my experience with the camera. And hopefully by the start of 2018, I'll have a full user experience review on the Sony A7R III. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.